Mobile learning, the way forward. This is a very interesting topic. For me, it's my passion. It's what I've done my research on. And I want to share some ideas with you. I'll take you a step above maybe on what you have been thinking about, but maybe you're there already. And I think this forum where we are today, we are here to share our experiences, and I want to give you some of what I've done. Now, the overview you can see there quickly is, I'll just give an overview of our mobile world, and then I'll talk a bit about the case study which I did, and then I'll look at gaming for learning, designing a game, and a conclusion. Now, if we look at the world in which we live today, we heard today just before for lunch that UP did the visitations on all the distance campuses, and they realized how students really like using mobile technology. Some may have more trouble with it. Some may just do it as a very natural thing. But we know that mobile communication, mobile devices are just part of our world today. Everybody has them. Maybe a more sophisticated device, or maybe a less sophisticated device, but it is here and it is here to stay. We cannot get away from it anymore. And students use it for communication. We use it for communication. But if I talk about people, then I really mean the students, because that is our core business. They are using it for their communication, their surfing, their emails. But very seldomly do lecturers, specifically in our environment, think about using mobile devices for learning. Now, what UP has been doing is looking at how can they use devices to access the learning, to access the material. Now, in the case study that I did, I really just wanted to see how would students react to using mobiles for learning. And what I did is I got a grant from NAFIC, and I bought devices for each student so that they would all have access to a device, and there wouldn't be anybody in the class that would say, oh, sorry, I can't. So they all had the same devices. It wasn't the bring your own device. It was the same device. And after that, I asked them, so tell me, what was your experience? What was good? What was not good? What worked? What didn't work? And tell me, how did you feel about it? How did you like it? And it was actually really great. And this is it just supports what UP was saying as well. Is the level of enjoyment was incredibly high. The feedback from the students was, most students. I think there were two that said, it wasn't that. But they were already, they were already using their mobile devices before. But the overall feedback of enjoyment was very clear. And then there was another feedback that came, which I found a little disillusioning. It was a bit concerning, and I really appreciated it from the students. They were very, very honest, and they said, well, if it comes to learning, maybe the mobile device can actually become addictive. It can become distractive. And then I was thinking, if we want to give all the students access to mobile devices, or we say, okay, use your mobile devices, and they say, oh, it's actually not helping me so much for the learning because it distracts me, then we must start thinking and rethink the whole thing of using mobile devices. Then I started reading up on what others have done and how have they implemented mobile learning as such. And then I came upon gaming, which is very closely related to the whole thing about addiction. And this is something I want to share with you. I was totally blown away by it. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think this is what I want you as well, you to take with you today. This is a research study which was done by a professor. Her name is Jane McGonigal. You will meet her just now. And what she says is that that people in general, she was focusing mostly on gamers, but she said they are spending 5 billion hours per week on gaming. And I thought, well, if that is not close to addiction, I have no idea. And she really pointed out that the gamer is so immersed, he's so engaged with this game because it is so much fun. And then she also mentioned epic win. Is there anybody that knows what epic win means? Okay, I see the gamers know exactly. Right. No, this was the first time that I heard, you know, around me. I've got youngsters in my house. I would always hear they would say, yes, that was not such an epic win. And I was thinking, you know, epic is the new cool word. But until I realized that it is actually a level of enjoyment, a level of achievement that can only be described by epic. It's absolutely amazing. It's something that you never thought you could do. Yet you never thought you would be able to achieve it. And then you did. And that feeling. And then what she also said is that when gamers are playing, it's as if they are not themselves anymore. They leave all these baggages behind. They don't go into the game as themselves anymore. It's not about their self-image and I can't do it. And you know, I only got 48% in my matric exam. They don't even think about that. It's about the game, and they are into it, and they are doing it as a different person. But in fact, it's them. That is the potential they have. And then something that caught my eye was what she said is, we learn faster from failure. So her study was really about incorporating gaming into learning. And you must now bear me out. You must be thinking, so well, where do I get from mobile learning to gaming? But if you think about how the student gets really immersed into using his technology to socialize with his friends, to be basically addicted to this device, and you think about the gaming and how you can channel that addiction into something that is much more meaningful. When I found this, where she speaks about gaming for learning, I realized this is the way to go. So I'm going to share this. Oh, I'd like you to watch this video. It's 6 minutes long, but I'm sure you will enjoy it. And then we can talk about that. Let me just get it down and open it up.
And I'm excited to be here today with Jane McGonigal, author, researcher of Reality It's Broken, and it is. And so we're going to see if we can put it back together in the next 3 minutes or so.
Oh, good. I like a good challenge.
Good deal. How are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks.
Thank you for coming to Microsoft to talk with our teachers here at the Innovative Education Forum.
So she's the
You've
professor.
been doing a lot of work, a lot of research, and you've been challenging people to think differently about reality as it relates to gaming. What's going on?
Well, you know, what I've been looking at is the kind of engagement that happens in games that doesn't seem to happen in our schools, in our workplaces, in our real lives.
Right.
And the qualities of engagement, you know, how we are more curious, more determined, more optimistic. We learn faster from our mistakes.
Right.
And we're more resilient in the face of failure. These are qualities that if we could take the kind of immersion and feedback and collaboration that happens in games and bring it to our real work, real learning, and real lives, we could have some of those positive emotions and kind of gamer superpowers.
Correct. You talk a lot about failure in your book.
Yeah.
Talk about that research. I share conversations with people from time to time that if you fail at a job and get fired, you want to erase that from your resume.
Yeah,
you don't want to put that on an application. But if you fail in business, people will hire you tomorrow.
Right, it's true, because you've learned something. Yeah.
So how can we balance the two from what you've learned through gaming in the workplace for the classroom?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. You know, a lot of my research, I look at both research on games and then research on learning, research in psychology. One of the studies I'm really interested in that came out last year showed that students learn better by taking tests than by studying for tests. Because when you take the test, you actually get real concrete feedback on what you know, what you don't know. And so essentially, being able to fail and get that feedback so you see where the gaps are, you can actually build learning, actually helps you learn better. And of course, that's what happens in games, right? And there's no fear that if I don't, finish the level or complete the quest the first time I try, I'll never get to play the game again, or there'll be like some big F on my, Xbox achievement. Instead of it having achievement badges, I'll have a bunch of Fs, So trying to bring that mindset of knowing that trying is what helps us learn, and, allowing students to try and fail and have that not be a grade, but rather an opportunity to learn and get better. That's one of the things that an interesting charter school in New York City is trying, called a charter school called Quest to Learn. The curriculum was co-designed by game designers.
Right.
And so just how they're thinking about failure and learning is totally inspired by video games, and students are allowed to keep taking the test until they get the grade that they like. The same way you keep playing a game to get the score you want.
So talk about the time differential from the feedback of failure or the feedback of success. In games, it's pretty immediate.
Yeah.
But in reality, not so much. Does that have an impact on learning?
Yeah, of course, yeah, because, you want to know right away while you're still engaged, so you can try again, right? I mean, it would be interesting to imagine a test where the minute you get it wrong, you're told you get it wrong, and then you get to try again. And maybe, yes, you still have an hour for the test, but you can keep
that
going.
The answer is wrong.
Yeah, and keep trying until you get to the right one. What works so well on multiple choice, but an open-ended math test, for example, might work better.
So that kind of speaks to, 48 states in the union have adopted Common Core state standards. They're trying to figure out what assessment looks like, next generation assessment.
Yes.
What would you tell chief state school officers about those next generation assessments and how to incorporate your research into them?
Yeah, well, I think we do not want to assess students on a single shot that they have, because in the real world, you do get feedback, you do have extended opportunities. So to think about assessment not as a test you take once, and no matter how you feel that day, if there's stress at home, if you didn't have a good night's sleep, I know, everything could affect it. To actually think about assessment as allowing students to get to their best at a time that is right for them, so you can actually see the students at their best rather than just a snapshot of some random moment in time.
Microsoft's got a lot of gaming assets. What do we need to do to kind of bring the things we do with gaming into the classroom so that reality can be mended back together?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that getting students involved hands-on sort of social problem solving, some of the teachers who are here for this conference are actually having students make games to try to solve local problems, right? Like what happens when students can't get into a classroom because there's construction, and doing distance learning right on site, and using game technologies to help facilitate that. So I think connecting the game technologies and those technology skill sets with local problems, social challenges, where it's clear to the community, it's clear to the school system that it has a positive impact beyond just the learning that the students are getting, but also being of service to the community.
That's going to be outstanding. Part of citizenship.
Yes, exactly.
I'm looking forward to your conversation later on today.
Thank you.
This is going to be exclusive, so you guys that are watching this webcast won't be able to see it, but
Okay, that just gets you thinking in that mode. What I found amazing in what she was saying there is how we would be, how games give students an opportunity to redo. If they fail, they can do it again. And very often in our assessments that we give our students, we give them one chance. They can only do the test once and then it's over. But if you look at the principle of gaming, it is really learning by failure and continuing and until you get to that level, and then you can go further. Now, sorry, I think you took the next one. I put this onto the PowerPoint presentation, so the next video as well, which is taking it a step further, but I'm not going to take it that far. So what I did is I looked at the principles of gaming, and if one thinks about a game, you immediately think, oh, we need multimedia developers, we need to get specialists in coding, and it's going to be such a mission to develop a game for say, a university class. is this even a possibility in our curriculum-driven and time-driven environment? And then I went in and I started reading up on games and designing games, and this actually came because in the TUT is busy compiling a program for first year orientation, and from the library, the manager of that program came to me and he said, we have to do an orientation program for the students, and we want to package it and put it onto Blackboard, but we don't really know how to do it. And then I thought, well, this is an opportunity to see how it can work, but I have to do my homework and see if it's possible, because I cannot propose something and it is ridiculously over the top. And when I did the reading and I looked into it, I realized that it is doable with what we have. And these are the steps that one has to consider, first of all, if you design a game. And when Bongani was talking about storyboarding and bringing in animations, there is I'm talking about animations now, but it's not necessary. But the storyboarding part you see there is step 3. It's a very important part of this. But I'll take you through the steps. The first one is really to define and clarify what is the outcome of it. So in the library environment, they want the students to be able to search for research, for articles, for journals, and then to be able to quote and to be able to write an article or to write a piece of paper. And they need to learn skills for that. So the outcomes of this whole activity would be they would be able to do all of those things. And then the next important thing is the big idea. One has to think about it. What is going to be the theme? What is the metaphor? And Bongani was giving us a few very interesting scenarios. I mean, when he said, you can tell me a story, I immediately thought, okay, that's where it starts. You have to come up with a story. And then from there, one can start developing it. And then you storyboard the game, so you think through it from the beginning to the end. Well, how do they enter, and what is the actual end result? And then you need a team. And on that team, you can have a multimedia designer. You don't need one, but it is helpful. Then you need a person that would be, maybe even a group, that would be compiling the assessments. And now in this library environment, we have a whole task team now that are developing questions. And those questions they had a few questions when we did this this first meeting. We were talking about it, but we looked at the questions again and we said let's rather make these questions on different levels, so that if they come at a certain point, at a certain activity, that we really engage the student more, and we ask him to think on a higher level and to be able to answer a question like that. And then well, in that team you would have certain role players, and then the sixth step is the standard game dynamics. So part of that is the players, the motivation, the levels. There are always levels in games. There's a certain amount of competition, even if it is against yourself. Permission to fail. They have to get the opportunity to redo it. Then rewards, the whole idea of rewards. Challenges. There must be something challenging that they want to do. And then the freedom to apply individual interpretation. So you give them an opportunity to give their opinion as well. Okay, so when you come to the storyboarding, you can see there are two sides to it. The game elements that are part of it is the game dynamics and then the game mechanics. And I also linked, there's a link on that game mechanics which you can look into later. The game dynamics is the touchy-feely stuff. That is the narrative. What is the story? Like the story that you told. What is the story from the beginning to the end? You will consider relationships inside the game. You will consider emotions. And you will also consider progression. How are they moving up? And then on the right-hand side is how the game is played. That is the rules. So you have to follow these rules, and these are the steps, and that must be very clear. It's like the outcomes, at the beginning of a lesson. You tell the student, these are the rules. You will come to the class, and you will do your assessment, and well, we don't do that in our classes. We don't give them an opportunity necessary to do the assessment again, but you can give them rules. Then things like leaderboards. There can be leaders, there can be levels, as I said, badges, and then other resources. This is just very, very wide, but it gives you an idea on how one can develop it. Okay, and then another thing which is really interesting, and I found this fascinating, is there's a test, it's called the Bartle test of gamer psychology. And you can also click on that link and do it yourself, and you can find out what is your gamer profile. And what Bartle said, there are 4 gamer profiles, and if you look at this, it might remind you something of, remind you of our learning. We've been talking about